So once again, what I was saying, feel free to interrupt me whenever you want and make as many comments, questions, or points as you would like to. You don't have to agree with anything that I'm about to say. So if you want to say you're wrong or that's not how you point things out, do so. That is the goal of this presentation, to have also a little bit of discussion. Um, but once again, the goal for the title is the main point, and it's about community advocacy. Yeah, that's what I will mostly cover. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Fernando Oleo Blanco. I go on the net by the nickname Irvise. Most of you know me, but I've learned a lot of many new people here in person, and there are a lot of people online that I yet have to get to know. So it's this. I think this is a great event to put faces and names to people. So the contents of this presentation are going to be to first introduce myself. And yes, that is actually a big chunk of the presentation because I want you to have my point of view, which is going to be probably very different to yours. And I think that may give you a different take on your own personal experiences and opinions that you may have. That way, you as the viewers, as the listeners, you will have your own experience, and hopefully you will also have mine. And maybe you agree with the things I'm going to say if seen from my point of view, but maybe not yours. And that's the point of the discussion. So please feel free once again to interrupt me. Then I'm going to make this is a very short section, a difference between formal and organized communities and the Wild West. Okay. Also, I'm going to make a point, maybe it's because I'm an engineer, that we need to be efficient, but I'll talk a little bit more about what being efficient means in this case. I'll also talk a bit about that the times are changing, and yeah, we need to update a few things. Mostly the mindset of some people in the good sense, and then the future of ADA. What do we want to do with it? So once again, feel free to participate, interrupt, say anything, do anything. And the style of the presentation is going to be very informal. So don't expect me to not swear, because I will. So who am I? I'm Fernando. I was born in 1997. Once again, I'm revisiting the net. And I'm probably one of the youngest people in this room. I was expecting to be the youngest. Maybe I'm not, I suppose. No, I'm not the youngest person here. That's good. This is good. That was a point I was going to make. But I'm actually not a programmer by any stretch of the imagination. I'm a mechanical engineer. Actually, I'm an industrial engineer. I have that master from Madrid, Spain, and mechanical engineer from Germany, Munich. And my field of expertise are materials, thermal systems, fluids, finite element mechanics, not programming. Well, Fortran, but we'll talk about it later. So I currently work in the nuclear sector as a systems engineer. So I do PNIDs. For those of you that don't know what a PNID is, don't confuse it with PID controllers. That's a different thing. PNID is a process and instrumentation diagram. If we go back, this is a process and instrumentation diagram of a nuclear reactor, the EPR2, the European Pressurized Water Reactor, designed by Areva. The reason I'm showing this is because most of you work in the army, most of you work in the aerospace sector, in safety critical things, and you cannot say anything. Not in the nuclear world. This is publicly available. If you want to see the neutronics, the fuel design, the reactor design, the calculations, you go to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of the United States of America, NRC, and grab these designs and just, yeah, use them if you want. I also work with cycles. So basically what you saw is the design of the system. Cycles is related to the thermodynamics of a system, component selection, etc., etc. So basically, no programming. The closest thing I get to program is Microsoft Excel, believe it or not. I'm a huge software aficionado, so I've been a basically full-time Linux user since I was 18 in my private life, not out of work. So what about ADA? Where does ADA show up in this story? By the way, that photo is me with a lot of beer several years ago while doing my master's. And the thing behind me is a fusion reactor. It's ASDEX upgrade. It's in Munich. and that's where I used to work during my master's. Very cool stuff. So nuclear is not only fission, so the traditional nuclear, but also I do fusion nowadays too. So my programming history, I'm not going to go into each and every detail. The most important thing, during my bachelor in my university, I learned C for embedded systems programming. We program Arduinos, your 80 megas. Later on, I would program DSPs for electric motor controllers, your typical PWM positionings. As any engineer, I also learned MATLAB, of course, Simulink, very, very important. And operational research. How many of you here in the room have learned or know what operational research is? Nobody. It's one of the coolest programming things that you can do. A lot of programming revolves around operational research. It's a branch of mathematics, and it's how to describe problems in a way, mathematically, but you can also program those equations in a way that they can be optimized. So it's not numerical optimization, it's topological optimization. So if you've heard the traveling salesman problem, that's operational research for you. So a lot of NP problems are OR, as we say. And Spark, formal verification, SMT, the modular theory that Spark employs, heavily employs, is very similar to operational research. Very cool stuff. Then something happened, question marks. We'll see what happened. And in my industrial engineering master, we also learned how to program PLCs, programmable logic controllers. How many of you have programmed a PLC in your life? Nobody. And you call yourselves programmers. I doubt it. You don't know what real programming is up until you program a PLC. And I'm not joking. Okay. So if you can, just once in your lifetime, trying to get your hands onto a PLC, maybe in a university or in a company, and try to program it. I bet my life you won't be able to write a single bit. These things are very interesting, very cool. There are several ways you can program them. They are standardized. They are standard programming languages by the IEC, 68,000 blah, blah, blah standard. And they are graphical, some of them functional blocks. Some are textual programming languages, structured text. It's very similar from to Ada. It's derived from Pascal. Programmable logic controller. Yeah, try to flip a LED. But not with a microcontroller. Yeah, but now as a student. Okay, so we have one person that did PLC. It's very interesting, very cool, especially when you start doing sequential function charts, ladder diagrams, and we also have our own assembly instruction thingy. So what happened in those question marks? Well, I did my first job, well, not really job, outside of university. And that's how I got started in the nuclear world. I went to a research center, CIEMAT, which is very similar to Max Planck Institute in Germany, or ENEA in Italy, or CEA in France. And I had to work on a program to do with some thermal transients. That program was written in Fortran 66, because real programmers only use Fortran 66. The rest are only key cheaters. You will get that reference with an article that I quote here. So yeah, this is what Fortran looks like. If statements didn't have else block or anything else, you could only execute a single instruction with a single if statement. You had global variables everywhere, because of course, why wouldn't you? J is an integer variable because it's between I and n, because anything that started between I and n was an integer. Everything else was a real. Obviously, less than, equal than. You don't use symbols, we use text, as always. You had to start every single line on the 7th line. Otherwise, you had to start with a number that would be a label for a format or a go-to, or a C for comments. So I worked in this code base for 2 years, a year part-time. Also, subroutines, beautiful things. Here I write input and output. That's not how they were. You normally name your variables. They were named whatever you needed. Uh, and in Fortran 66, even if you named something in, if you modified it, it was modified forever because you were accessing memory directly. There was no passing by reference or anything. You just pass the address. Well, literally, you pass the address, but not via reference. So while working on this, by the way, the code is Fortran 2.0. It's a family of nuclear fuel performance code. The people that work on those codes receive the source code, but I cannot share it. It's not open source. It's actually tightly guarded. You need special permissions there. And the thing I studied was LOCAS, loss of coolant accidents. That's when the reactor starts losing water, basically the refrigerant. And this is a certified program. You have to use a list of certified programs in the nuclear world by the NRC if you want to do anything. You cannot just use your own homegrown code. This code taught me what good and well-written programs look like. It was beautiful to read. Everything was nicely documented where it had to be documented. There was a 300-page manual that you had to flip through, and you could see the equations written exactly in the code. After all, Fortran stands for Formula Translator, so it was very easy to follow. But I thought to myself, after working on it for a while and making way too many bugs and errors in my code, can we do better? And the answer is yes. There is Fortran 2003 that starts being modern Fortran, but also 2023. Fortran is newer than the latest standard of Ada, by the way. So Ada, pick up the indirect. I knew C and C++. At least they had a structured if statements, so that's good. Obviously, modern Fortran does too. But I wanted something more. Can we program in such a way that when we've written the code, we can trust that it has been written correctly, and when we compile it, or even before compiling it, that it is going to do the right thing, or the thing that we expect it to do, like not dividing by 0, which, by the way, I did it so many times with Fortran because I forgot that between I and n variables are integers. When you save a small number in an integer, it automatically becomes 0. So I did so many divisions by 0 during my Fortran days. Yeah, it wasn't so nice. So couldn't the compiler or something else tell me about it? By the way, that's the article I'm referring to about Fortran. Real programmers don't use Pascal, they use Fortran and not something else like C or things like that. And this article actually mentions Ada, by the way. It's an article from the 80s. So I went looking and I found things like FramaC and SEL4, formally verified or tools or microkernels that you could theoretically trust. Enter Ada. Obviously, I also found Ada. So one of the first things I picked up from Ada is, oh, you can formally verify it with a Spark. I like that. But not only you can do so, it's readable, it's easy to learn. I started taking a look at Ada, and indeed, I had never programmed in Ada, but by just looking at the source code, I know what it does. That's something that was very interesting, and I'll mention this point again. It was a fission, it's high and low level, it's compiled, and it doesn't have, it's not garbage collected, so it's just like Fortran. And let's start using some actual terminology. Ada. No, you no longer say efficient and high-low level or compile or whatever. If we've learned something from the Rust community, these properties are summarized in blazingly fucking fast, okay? Do not quote these things, just say blazingly fast. Okay, that's something that Rust people have started to do. If it's written in Rust, independently of whatever algorithms and data structures they are using, they say it's blazingly fast, so is Ada. So whenever you talk about Ada in public, blazingly fucking fast. Cool stuff. Oh yes, the Rust community always adds rocket emojis. I forgot about those. My mistake. Sorry for that. Also, it's used in the army, aeronautical, and space. if there is an industry that's harder in terms of quality and stronger in terms of quality than nuclear, is aerospace. And mostly because a nuclear reactor sits in a single place and operates for 50 years, and there are like 600 reactors around the world. There are probably more airplanes flying right now above Europe, and they also live like for 40, 50 years, some of them, and they carry people that are not allowed, that normally aren't allowed in like nuclear reactors. So hey, I took a look at it, and it looks good. Maybe verbose. I'll talk about that later. But then there was a video by Adacore in their YouTube channel or other channels. I found that video. I've lost it. I found it again. I lost it again. Happens to the best of us. And it has something like this. It was a memory map. You define a record type with your data structures, and then you say exactly what bits each data structure has, where, when, and they are defined. And I'm not even showing here the representation clauses. When you start adding enums under representation clauses, wow. And then you map it, memory map it. Obviously, you create the data structure and then you memory map it so you can work directly on the thing. And remember, my background was mostly embedded systems, industrial things. So this was my bread and butter back in my day in university. So my natural reaction was, did I lose? Oh, no, I did not. I had a huge emoji here. I lost it. Now, oh, I lost it because this is the PDF. Oh, my bad. I shouldn't be using the PDF. If there is something I've learned about using allow me, about using JavaScript, is that you need to run it on the on the browser. So give me a moment. And I'm not joking. This is built in JavaScript. Well, actually, it's an it's a interactive presentation tool. It's Leader. Very nice, very cool. You can do a lot of nice things. Aha, now. I fucked up this reaction, but don't worry. This is amazing. That was my reaction, okay? This was so good. By the way, how many of you have seen this emoji, this reaction? Okay, 2 people, and of course they are some of the youngest in this room. That's a problem. 3 people. Okay, that I will talk about this later also. But this was my genuine reaction. And I knew that moment, this is the language I wanted to work with. This is pretty much everything I've ever dreamt of. And I think it's, at least in the industrial background that I had, this is what I needed. Of course, later on, I learned that it had official C interop and Fortran interop, which made it even better because I love Fortran. And I still worked, and I did my master's in Fortran too, with some high temperature materials and things like that, whatever. So the first time I started learning anything about Ada was actually here. So I went into YouTube and I searched for Ada programming or Ada tutorial. I don't remember what I did, and I found the Ada Core Academy videos and Patrick Kelly's videos. Who he no longer does any Ada videos. He got burned up and stopped producing those. He got burned up by the community and the Ada community. I'll talk more about that later. And this is basically the things I've been doing in the Ada community at large since I found out. I've been using Ada since 2019, I believe. That's when I found it. In my spare time, I'm not a professional programmer, so don't think I work with Ada more than maybe an hour a week, if that at all. So I started doing AVR Ada because I had an Arduino and I wanted to program it with Ada. Who doesn't know? And Rolf Evert, the creator of AVR Ada, helped me a lot. And I had questions. He was very kind, very helpful. He's a great person. So definitely check AVR Ada if you use it. Then I learned Ada runs on RISC-V, and as I'm a big Libre software aficionado, Libre architectures are also my thing. And when I learned that, I fell even more in love with Ada, and I enabled a small programming board that I have here in the Ada drivers library. Then I learned Ada could run everywhere, and I was playing around with operating systems back then. NetBSD runs even on a toaster, so obviously Ada has to run on every architecture of NetBSD. But I found out that the compiler was extremely outdated, and it was only available for x86 Intel and AMD architectures. So I said, "Oh, I can update it. It's just recompile the thing with by changing a version number in a string, and everything's going to work." My God, did I underestimate it so much. Luckily, the people in the IRC chat, very especially John Marino, they basically did the bulk of the work in the end. And I learned so much about compilers and compiler structures, and how the runtime of Ada calls into the operating system to create basically everything. We had issues with pthread architectures that had structures that had changed in NetBSD, sockets and things like that. It was a horrible decision for me to do this, but I learned a lot, and I'm very glad about it. Then Dirk Kranus, who is sitting here, sent a message in a mailing list saying that he wanted to step down as the main organizer of FOSDEM, which you probably all know here. And some time passed, and nobody stood up to take over him. And FOSDEM had been a wonderful resource for me in terms of Ada and learning Ada, especially Jean-Pierre's introduction to Ada. It's amazing. It's one of the best videos about Ada out there. And I felt kind of bad letting FOSDEM, the Ada work dev room, just kind of disappeared. So since nobody stood up, I did. So Dirk also helped me a lot behind the scenes, by the way. We organized a virtual dev room in 2022. And for 2023, I thought we were going to be given a dev room, just like every other year. But they didn't. So we scrambled very quickly to ask for a stand, and they gave us a stand at least, which, by the way, was very successful. I was very pleased with how, with the reception we got in, and I should say that it was mostly thanks to Tama McGlynn, who brought a small game. He didn't make a game. He created a plugin for Mindtest, which is a Libre Minecraft clone, so that people could write like a small bot using Ada, and they would see the entity move around. And it was very interactive, very, very interactive, and people loved it, especially children. This was targeted to children, and it was hugely successful. So, okay, all's good. In 2024, we will have a FOSDEM dev room. Won't we? No. Okay, we will ask for a stand, just like we did last year. Can we have a stand? No. So basically, Ada was wiped very quickly out of existence, or at least from the FOSDEM point of view. But after 2023, I realized that the Ada community was kind of fading into obscurity. And I wanted to fix that. And my contribution was the creation of the Ada monthly meetup, where we meet once a month, more or less, generally the first Saturday of each month, more or less, so that people can present their work, their topics, or have small discussions. I didn't get this idea all by myself. I took it from Fortran. Believe it or not, the Fortran people, since 2018 or something like that, a small group of people came together and said, hey, Fortran is kind of disappearing. Now, Fortran is no longer using high-performance computing. When I came here after lunch, I was talking to Sarah, the organizer of this event, and I asked her, do you use Fortran in Mare Nostrum, so in this supercomputer that you have here? And she was, no, we don't use it anymore. Maybe some earth science people and do use it, and we work in the Flang, so the Fortran LLVM compiler. We are working with them to implement it, and ARM and NVIDIA and things like that. But no, I'm not aware that and that's happening. Fortran is kind of falling also in obscurity, even in its main selling point, high performance computing. And since 2019 or something like that, they created the Fortran program website, and it's a modern, clean website where people can find tutorials, forums. It's clean, it's nice. I contributed to that website. If you go to the for loop tutorial, that's mine. Well, some fixes. They started doing monthly meetups. They realized that Fortran is a high-performance numerical computer language, but Fortran doesn't have any numerical libraries. If you try to do statistics with Fortran, the language itself doesn't have any predefined library to do that. And they realize, oh, that's the main point of Fortran, and we are not providing things by default. Even if it's a simple implementation, maybe not a high-performance implementation, of course, but something that our users can very quickly get ready and with and start programming. So they started doing the STL, the Fortran STL, the standard library of Fortran. It lives outside of any compiler, but it provides a ton of mathematical tools just to quickly work with it. And it has been growing and growing and growing. And someone started doing an interactive Fortran compiler so that you can use Jupyter, this interactive worksheets, programming worksheets, and you can see just like Python. They started doing that, and I took inspiration from them. That's the point I'm trying to make. Okay, so that was my introduction. Believe it or not, it was long, I told you, but hopefully now you will understand where I'm coming from and why I'm about to say some things I'm not going to say. So when I talk about communities, what do I mean by communities? So we have the formal side of Ada, and that's fine. We have Ada Europe, SIG Ada, which is RIP. I should take out that question mark. It's now official. It's been official for a couple of months already. We have the standardization committee, WG9. No? We are an ISO standard that we should be taking pride on that. We have also not only general aggregations of people, but we also have companies behind that have their own communities, their own set of users, like AdaCore, and maybe the Army, Aerospace, NATO, and other companies that we have representation here. I'm not going to talk about those. Okay, they exist by themselves. They have their own structures, and people join and go as it's declared, as it's structured. I'm going to focus on everything. And what do I mean by everything? I'm going to focus on all the Ada users, because even the formal users live in the informal, wider world of Ada. So I'm going to talk about the people that chat in the IRC, which is still very much alive, believe it or not. Some people are still using Usenet, the comp.lang.ada network. We have Telegram, Matrix, Gitter Element. We have Discord, which was recently created. We have Reddit, and now we also have Ada language. So I know some of you have accounts there. If you don't, I encourage you to create one if you're an active member of the community. And we are trying to modernize in that website, the accessibility to the language, the discussions of those languages, and of the language and the topics. And the formal people also, as I said, also live in this world, not because they are part of these communities, but because their products are used by people all over the Ada world. And anybody can join these networks, anybody can exit, be part of, or just comment, complain, whatever. Everything exists can exist if desired within these networks. So this is a group I'm going to focus on. So once again, maybe it's because I'm an engineer, but I like to describe things mathematically. So I want to talk about success. So what is success? The first thing is, if I ask you, is Ada successful? If we look at a technical level, I think everybody here would say a resounding yes. Of course, Ada is a huge technical success. Nothing comes close to it. Take a look at the type system. Even newer, pretty much all new programming languages are trying to implement some kind of type system, and not just like the type system of C or C++. They are trying hard to create real type systems. They can look at Rust, TypeScript. It's literally JavaScript with types. That's literally the name of the programming language. Even Python added type annotations since Python 3.5. The interpreter does not use those in execution, but it does so like when parsing the code and reporting errors. Um, Gleam was like, hey, what if Elixir had types? And we are going to use the Rust type system kind of thing and marry it with Elixir. So that's one of the main selling points of Gleam. But the Elixir people already realized, oh, we are a dynamically typed programming language, and now we are writing real programs and big programs, and types are actually useful for those things. And now they've started adding types to the language, like the actual language level support for types. Obviously, new programming languages from large institutions and groups use types. Swift, Kotlin, Dart, Go. And believe it or not, even fucking PHP has started adding types since 7.4. And now it's pretty much a fully typed programming language. Believe it or not. Okay? Those people are playing catch up with us. We're farting and they are smelling everything. Okay? They are behind us constantly. Even new programming languages barely reach the potential of our type system. Though I have to be honest, some of the things that they offer in their type systems are better than Ada's. Especially Rust has some nice features in their type system that we don't have in Ada by default. You can do it homegrown, but then it starts becoming a little bit less wieldy. We have wonderful, clear, and readable syntax. Okay, it's like Python Lua-like. Some people hate it that it doesn't have brackets. And it's like, okay, Python doesn't have brackets. Why don't you shit on it? And tell them that. Tell them like that. And why is Lua recommended for beginners? It doesn't have brackets, but it is a real programming language, and it is used. And yes, of course, Pascal, we come from Pascal. Pascal also doesn't have brackets. It's very easy to learn, okay? And I'm pretty sure all of you here have heard the complaint of, oh, Ada is too verbose when they are shown some piece of code. What a great compliment. Tell them that. Thank you. Why? Because those people read some source code that they probably had never seen in a language that they probably had never seen, understood it so well, and translated it on the fly in their heads to another programming language that they probably knew, and then they realized they could shorten up the amount of characters that they are seeing. They did that on the fly the first try. How many times have you seen a new programming language and said, oh, I understand it so well that I can simplify it? When has that happened in your life with anything? Machines, cars. It happens with Ada. What a fucking compliment. Tell them that. Tell them that to their faces. And they will be startled, and then you explain them what I say. We have a great module system. Look at C++, same age as Ada. They recently started adding modules to their language. Believe it or not, we have a good module system, and modern programming languages have very similar module systems. But Ada had it since the 80s, and this is also a point you have to I think, to realize. No, Ada is wonderfully technically, because the people in these new programming languages and communities are doing what Ada was doing in the 80s. I know I don't need to tell you this, but sell it not as we are old, we are 40 years old. Sell it as good. Why did you create a new programming language when you already had that problem solved? Go ahead and realize that the people that designed Ada knew what they were doing. Just imagine what else you are missing that they knew you were going to need. Modules back in the day, yes, Pascal had them and things like that, but they were basic. Ada, I won't say perfected them, but greatly improved upon them, so much so that even new programming languages have basically the same features nowadays. Also, talking about features, we have native tasking since 83. How many languages have that? C++ only gained multi-thread support, official multi-thread support, in C++ 11. Some other languages do not even have like proper multi-threading like TypeScript. And Python 3, they are this global interpreter lock issue, whatever, and they have to launch several interpreters at the same time. No, we have tasks. We have contracts. Um, and that's very interesting. How many of you, if I use the term liquid types, do you know what I mean by liquid types here in the room? Nobody? Something. Okay, one person more or less knows it, and another person says that forgot it. So, liquid types. Do you know when they were added to Ada? With perfection in, they were perfected in 2012 with contracts. Liquid types stands for logically qualified types. So types not only that represent data, they also have some kind of built-in behavior, but not behavior such as controlled or limited types, um, but behavior as in some logic to them, like even numbers. If I say even numbers, you all know what I mean. Okay, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's the sequence of even numbers. There is some logic to them: divisible, non-divisible, even, odd. Thanks to contracts, we have that with dynamic predicates and things like that. The Haskell community has been drooling over liquid types and how they could greatly improve the programming experience and robustness of things. Even people who literally program in a research level programming language don't achieve the same production level quality that we have before us. So, Wasam, today we had a wonderful presentation, I think, about the use of WebAssembly within Ada. We have web support in Ada, and Wasam, since it's nearly platform independent, you can run it once again on Android, iOS, whatever you want. Some people are starting to use Wasm in the servers as quick launch scripts that the server would just execute rapidly and go back to a standard state. We have nowadays a nice standard library, a wonderful embedded support. We are mature, we are not changing, we are not breaking code. That may not be wonderful, especially because all things could be improved. But it's well understood, it's well documented. We have very high quality learning resources. That's not the case for a lot of programming languages. If you go to, for example, TypeScript, you may find documentation that is extremely old and outdated. And if you try to implement your code nowadays with the modern versions, it doesn't work. That's not the case with Ada. Spark, obviously, I'm not going to talk about it. Formal verification, automatic formal verification, by the way, because there are some communities that love verification and they use Cog and Lean and these things, but they are not manually, but they are not fully automated. You have to kind of guide the prover. And people praise it even when they struggle it. I don't know if you've been in the forums, but there has been a very well-known prominent figure in the programming world, Saudi, a wonderful person, who said, okay, I'm going to try Ada because thanks to the new NSA report of memory safe programming languages, he saw Ada and said, oh, I need to try it. And he had already worked a little bit. He had like a old video 4 years ago about trying Ada for like 3 hours, doing tic-tac-toe or the game of life or something like that. And said, no, but no, and now I'm actually going to do something useful with it. I'm going to build a game and I'm going to give myself 20 days, several hours a day till I build it. And he struggled a lot, and I've documented his struggles and his points and his takes of the language thoroughly. I have like, if you go into that thread, into that forum thread, it's yeah, I wasted several days of my life writing that. Yeah, and he streamed it, and it's all recorded. So if you want to see him struggle real time, you can see that. It's very fun, and as we are Ada programmers, seeing him like struggling some of the most basic shit just because he doesn't read the documentation, especially that. But I'm going to talk about documentation in just a moment because he's right. it was a lot of fun. But the goal of him doing that was to actually make a video summarizing his experience, and he did a video and published it. And if you see the live streams, if you see him struggle, you say, oh no, he's going to shit on the language. He's going to hate it. He's going to publicly shame it. Well, he came with the video, public video, now giving him some days after to think about it and to see whether he liked the language in the end. And he praised it. Even when he was thoroughly struggling, he praised it in the end. Okay, I think that speaks volumes with the language. And also take him with a grain of salt. He's very sarcastic. So when you see his videos and he starts shitting nonstop on the language, he's been quite sarcastic. Although his sarcasm always comes with a little bit of truth. So obviously Ada is very successful. Now this entire room is filled with people crowding and applauding, of course. Well, what is success now? If we measure success with the things I just said, it's a function of features, optimizations of the language, libraries, ease of use, vastness, readiness to be used. So Ada theoretically should be an extremely successful programming language. Okay, maybe some exceptions. Okay, it's not designed for prototyping. We have things to do that now, like Lua, Python. By the way, those links, everything is filled with links, so that when you download the slides, you can quickly find the information around. And I'm the only one talking now. By the way, if you want to interrupt me, as I said, this is a discussion. This is not a monologue. Those links take you to the bindings, the Ada bindings of those programming languages, in case you want to add a scripting to your applications. But we also have a scripting in Ada. Hack is an Ada compiler designed to aid on that scriptingness. And Sparforte, okay, maybe it's not, Ada is not the best for dynamic metaprogramming languages. It was an important and well thought decision to not have those features in the language, so that the users won't shoot themselves in the foot while working with them. Okay, then you have a scheme, list, forth. Okay, maybe Ada isn't really suitable for some harder problems, like a fast-paced world. In Ada, we take our time to do things that work, not do things that seemingly work. Okay, it's not great if you need to hack up something quickly and be the first to market a product. No, that's known as a time to market. That's a measure of how much time you actually need to get a product to be sold. It's not ready for prototyping, as I've said, or maybe not even, it's not even good for MVP. How many of you know MVP? Probably nobody. Minimum viable product. Exactly. No, would you use Ada for an MVP if you needed to show a feature or something that could be improved? Would you use Ada to do an MVP? You're Ada programmers. One person says why not?
It all depends in which domain you work. If you're in a specific domain, it's when you start from scratch and have nothing. Then of course you have a little bit more setup.
I agree with that, but does Ada have a lot of tools and libraries that you can use to quickly hack something new? MVPs are always new, by the way. It's not something similar to something that already exists. Supposedly it has a value-added component to it. That's where Ada should be the technology that adds it. Would you? I know you are Ada programmers. Of course, the answer of some people is going to be yes. And you're good Ada programmers, so I don't doubt it. But most people, if you tell them, would you use a strongly typed programming language to prototype or to try to get something to your boss or to your manager? The answer is going to be most likely no, especially when you have things like Python or JavaScript. If you need interactivity, you have JavaScript in the web. If you need to crunch some numbers or do some scripts, you have Python. You can run Python, by the way, in microcontrollers nowadays, even JavaScript. I don't know if you know about MicroPython or things like that. Even Go, like um, what was it called, Go Micro or something like that. You can do those things. Here I've left a video. I don't fully agree with what the guy says, but he makes a point: how to build a product that scales into a company. It's about technology companies. It's about, you know, the typical venture capitalists. Just here, someone has a comment. It should be on. Okay.
I'm sorry I couldn't. Yeah, when, yeah, this
culture of instant gratification
is what makes adoption of ADA harder at the
you think like in the long
long term life
cycle of a
cycle
product,
of minimum viable product.
if the product is
Successful
successful in
in
the
the market.
market, you will have to maintain it.
Mhm.
So that means you pay the cost now or later you have to rewrite the code because you wrote it in a
Prototyping language,
but
but
if
if
you
you
write
write it in a language that was engineered for maintainability like ADA, most likely you have to rewrite it from scratch again.
right, so
Mhm.
it's like
We want to save
cents
or we want to save euros. You want we may it may
take longer.
take to do the initial development, but you will save cost in the long term, right? And a professor of mine once said, designing is more fun than debugging. Ada is better for that. C C was engineered for injecting bugs more quickly. So C is the language perfect, is the most efficient language to inject bugs. Ada is the most efficient language to prevent bugs. But yeah, you have that barrier that you fight so much, like the struggle of fighting with the compiler, because but the compiler is your friend. Once you understand that is your friend and not your enemy, when you get rid of this instant gratification mentality, I need to run my I need to rush to test. So if I'm struggle with the compiler, I'm not making progress. But the beauty of Ada is that once it compiles,
Cleanly, most likely
it will run right the first time. And it's also, this goes back also to thinking in terms of the total quality management philosophy of the late 1970s that, you know, Japanese automakers kind of made very popular, is do things right the first time, because that is cheaper than doing them wrong and having to fix them over and over later. And that part of that philosophy of doing things right the first time is using a language like Ada.
I fully agree. And that's a point I will highlight. You're all ADA programmers. You all understand these issues. So does the world? Do the managers understand these issues? Does the rest of the programming world, or the people that are going to give you money to build a product or to accept a program in your companies? Do they understand this?
the intent of this session was to find out whether we could help advocacy to further that.
Yeah, I know. I've seen the time. So reality hits hard. I'm a mechanical engineer. I love thermodynamics. Obviously, the Greek letter eta, efficiency, and in mechanical engineering, or pretty much every field of engineering, this is the simplest and most important equation that you have to deal with. The reality is just theory times some kind of efficiency. Obviously, this is heavily simplified. And my opinion is that for ADA, the efficiency factor here is pretty low in terms of several aspects. So it, regarding the community, and the reason I'm focusing on it is because I think that the community is a reflection of the efficiency. After all, communities are built on a project that's on a thing, on a topic that is interesting, like, I don't know, books, or fun or enjoyable, like, I don't know, movies. Is it profitable? If it's profitable, then you're going to make quite a bit of a community in there. Or if it's fulfilling or productive, it doesn't need to be profitable for it to form a community. The people that work, for example, in Libre software, they are generally not profiting much from it, but they do it because it's fulfilling. It's enjoyable to them, because it's easy. If something is not easy to access or something like that, less people are going to be willing to invest their time in it, or maybe they want to invest their time in it because it's difficult and it's unique. That's the other thing. A lot of, let's say, communities are based on modernness and trendiness of the moment. Before it was data analysis, then became big data, now it's AI, and it's all the same thing but different names, and you need to keep it trendy. Honor tradition, as I mentioned. Sometimes it's because of a requirement, such as a certificate. I can tell you that if you want to build nuclear reactors, you have to be certified. That's known as the N seal. I don't have it, for example. I wouldn't mind getting it. And once you have the N seal, you can look everybody into their, from the top bottom. It's very fulfilling. Is there a sense of belonging in the community? In the end, communities are people coming together. If they don't feel like they should be there, or they want to be there, then and I take back what I said about Patrick Kelly, the YouTube video I showed earlier. He didn't feel right with the community, so he left. What about Ada? I think Ada is very interesting and capable. So any programmer that's into interesting programming languages, concepts, historical things, I think they would like to enjoy Ada. And the Russian guy I told you about, Sodin, with the live streams and everything, he picked Ada because, hey, this is a weird language that the NSA says that it's memory safe. Let me try it out. It's fun, enjoyable. Depends on how you define fun. If you ask a Lisp programmer what they find fun, it's metaprogramming and doing crazy weird things with their S expressions, and things like that. If you ask an engineer what is fun, it's getting shit done and going back home at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and not having to stay up debugging shit up until 3 in the morning. So yeah, is it profitable? Is Ada profitable? Can I ask you that? I know some people here work in Ada jobs. It is, if you work an Ada job, probably it's profitable. You're very well known and experienced programmers. But for the people that do not work Ada jobs, is it easy to find an Ada job? No, it's not very profitable. It may be profitable to some of you. Please say it into the mic. Then it is very profitable to you. But for the rest of the community, for the rest of the programmers out there, that's one of the main things people look into when learning a language, when investing time, is how am I going to return that investment on time? Is it going to be fun? A lot of people think about money. A lot of people get into programming because it's a profitable job to do. I can tell you that from all of you, I'm the least paid of all of you. I'm not even joking. Well, 2 people are here from Italy, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Italy has not had a rent increase like in the past 30 years or something like that. So maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, it's not very profitable if you don't kind of find a job. Is it fulfilling and productive? I think so. Yes, Ada is very fulfilling and productive. Is there ease of access?
There's a remark in the chat which I think is very valuable. It's look, totally hearing people say that companies who use Ada don't promote that they do.
Yes, I will talk about that. Yes, and I've had a discussion with like 4 people in the past 24 hours about their companies using Ada for really cool stuff that they cannot say they use Ada for that. Yeah. I'll talk more about that in a moment. Is it modern and is it trendy? I think it can be. We'll see. Honor and tradition. I think there is some honor in Ada and tradition. Requirement and certification. Yes, big yes. And I would dare to say that one of the big reasons Ada hasn't died is because we are still maintaining code from the 90s. If your projects could magically change language without any added cost, would your projects still pick up Ada? Some of you will, because I know some of you work in the army and you need to get things that actually work. But if your companies are starting new projects, are they picking up Ada? If they could change the language, would they? They are, and that's kind of sad, no? And one of the reasons Ada is still alive is just because of legacy, and I don't want that to happen. As a remark that yes, indeed, even in the space domain, new projects in the ESA are starting to use C++ instead of Ada. So yes, that indicates that Ada has become a bit of a legacy language. That was the remark that had been done. Maybe the distance of the antenna is not that good. That's bad. Is there a sense of belonging to the community? I think here everybody would say yes, but if you ask somebody that's not part of the Ada community, would they say, "Oh, Ada looks such like a great community to be part of, like filled with very knowledgeable engineers and very cool projects"? Do they have that opinion? I would recommend you ask random people about that. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a guy told me he came to the conference. He's no longer today here. He told me, "Oh, I didn't know that Ada could do also was so good, and that so many cool projects had been written in Ada. Why is that?" Yeah. And he was very interested into like, can I come to the workshop? Can I be with you guys? Now that he learned that, hey, this is a very interesting group of people and topics, but he didn't know that before. So new and old problems fostering to foster a healthy and growing sustainable community. So chicken and egg problem, obviously, it always happens. And I think Ada is losing it, as Lucas pointed out. Companies want Ada programmers, but since they cannot find them, they don't train, and they don't train them, then they move on. But I want to make a big remark here. And this, I think this is going to be painful. Sorry for this. New programming languages in the past 10 years also didn't have any jobs because they were new and nobody used them. And no company would dare to touch those things with a 10-foot pole. And nowadays, they do have jobs. The main example I'm going to use here is Rust. I'm going to use Rust because Kotlin was done by JetBrains for Android, and then Google adopted it, and Swift was created for Apple devices. So there was a reason to use those languages. If you were in the ecosystem, you had to use those languages. If you want to do web programming, you have to do JavaScript. Okay, regardless of how new the language was, you had to use it. So automatically there would be jobs for it. But things like Rust, yes, they were created in the Mozilla Foundation, but then quickly left the Mozilla Foundation. And it was just through the development of the language and through the passion of the people and through improvements to the language that it started to become a good language in a way that companies were willing to start utilizing it for new products. New people started to use it. When new people started doing new projects or their own companies or their own products, they were based on Rust. So that initial seed spread it and not only grew by themselves, but also started making other people grow. So this is a problem every other community has had to solve. And Ada started with a long advantage because we already had the jobs. So yeah. Programmers want ease of use and wealth of libraries. No, JavaScript is famous for their huge library collection. Python, one of the reasons that a lot of data science is done in Python is because every data science library is in Python. You just pip install and move on with your life. No. And Ada, in comparison to some of these communities, does not have much to offer. Yes, we do have a wonderful bunch of embedded programs and libraries, as we've seen, and very cool projects like operating systems. But for the average non-Ada programmer, is Ada a healthy ecosystem to be in? Alier is helping to close the gap. It's making everything much more discoverable, easier to use, easier to integrate. It's just like every other package manager out there. So this is good. This is really good. Very important point. New people and professionals want resources the way they want them, when they want them. We have books, wonderful books. We have forums nowadays, finally. We have chats where that you can drop in and start asking questions and having discussions. Though the chats on the forums are a little bit underutilized. Notice that there is a dot after books and then forums and chats is not capitalized. Okay, so I did that on purpose. Sorry for that small detail, but that's wonderful. Where are the videos? Where are the blogs? Where are there unrelated forums mentioned in ADA? Where are the conference chats and or university courses and discussions? I'm going to ask a question. I probably already know the answer. That's the point. How many of you learned ADA by watching YouTube videos? Nobody. I did. You did it by reading the manual. That is how ADA used to be learned, by books and reading the manual. And I think that is wonderful. How many there? Well, just a simple remark. Oh yes, the remark is that there was no internet when ADA got started, so that makes sense. But that highlights the point. There is a new resource, and none of you are utilizing it, and it's a hugely important resource.
I don't learn well from videos. I learn better from written.
And I understand that. But how do people start learning things nowadays? Have you asked yourselves that question? If you go to a student, how do they learn? It's through videos. It's not through reading material. Okay, it's through blogs. They search for a blog post. They go to a forum, a generic forum, and they ask a question about their topic. And if there are people that know the topic, the language, the technology, whatever, they answer it. They can go to, oh, I'm going to spend 100 euros in a wonderful book about a programming language, and you know which one I'm talking about. I'm not willing to open a TikTok channel, but you get the point. You're getting the point. Times are changing. Old men, obviously, you're old men, all men, and the trends are changing. And I want this point to stand. Success is still based on merits. Okay, no, nothing stands just because they are trendy. Trendy things are trendy because they are easy come, easy gone. That's the trend. Something that comes and stays is not a trend. It's something that becomes bolted to the technology. And times are changing, and I think we need to change that way, the way we work and things we do. So yeah, I learned ADA. I discovered firstly ADA through YouTube videos, but I would like to acknowledge this point that a lot of us learn ADA by reading the reference manual or the annotated manual. And this is something I want you to have in mind, and I think this is extremely valuable. How many other programming languages, communities, etc., learn their languages through their manuals, through the actual definition of the fucking programming language, the source of truth? How many? Go to any C++ programmer. Oh, yeah. So the point is, how many languages even have a standard, and even more so, a free one, an accessible one, which it's a fair point. One of the first things Ada Core did when they started working with Rust was, we need to define the language. There is no Rust unless we define what Rust actually means. And that's the first thing that was done, to formally define in a way the language, the fair offense, which you've probably all heard of, Rust definition. That was the first thing they did, for a reason. But how many, if you go and ask a C programmer, a C++ programmer, even a Fortran programmer, if they've read their standards, if they've read their reference manuals, how many of them have? Nobody. Their standards are so unreadable. The C++ standard is now constructed of several working groups, because not even a single working group can deal with that language as a whole. I'm not joking. Take a look at that. They have like a real-time working group and a graphics, or no, not graphics, but like the standard libraries working group, and language development working group. It's incredible. It's so large. Not even the people that design the language can fully understand the language itself. And John Sustrup is very well known as saying, just use the parts that you care for. Forget about the rest of the language. Okay? How many languages do we tell their users, hey, go to the reference manual because it's readable, it's understandable? But I also want to make the counterpoint. No, since nobody does that, when a newcomer comes and you tell them, oh, go to the reference manual, chapter 5.11. And I've been told this directly by a user. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? You're guarding the Soding, the YouTuber that did the live streams and everything. People were telling him, oh, go to the standard. And he was like, no, I'm not fucking reading this block of text. I want an answer to my question. I don't want to read a manual. And this is unreadable, etc. Nobody's used to that. And I, as a mechanical engineer, there was a remark that users should look into the Barnes book. And as I said, yes, the books are wonderful. Issue is, go out and spend 100 euros in there or something like that. Yes?
Yeah, I think that
In this modern age of open source, Ada has an advantage that few languages have, like is the readability. And I think one way that we can promote more the use of Ada is by promoting reading Ada code, reading existing Ada code. And I don't know, maybe these regular meetups could also include like reading existing code that not only the
community will learn from, but it will attract new people, right? Because I mean, when I learned programming, many years ago, there was not open source, so there was no opportunity to read existing code from other people to improve yourself. So I think that reading existing code may be an alternative if people that don't like to read books.
Mm-hmm. This YouTuber, Sodin, continuously was looking for source code examples, not documentation, continuously. And yes, the way I learned Ada, literally by reading source code. And I think, once again, as I said earlier, that speaks volumes to how well designed the language is, without really understanding. But if you know what you're looking for, you can find it in source code, identify it, and learn from it. But yeah, thank you for that remark. And that's also one thing that we are trying to do with Ada Lang, and that's the tutorials, and that it has code snippets and things like that, trying to modernize the learning and discovery techniques from Ada. I want to say something about the standard, but oh yes, careful with new users as they are not used to this. And I can tell you that the standards are not the most enjoyable things to read, and I can tell you that because I'm, as I said, some certifications in the nuclear world. And are you proud of being part of the Ada community? And are newcomers proud? Do they find pride in our community? I can tell you my experience. One of the reasons I stayed here and I realized this is amazing is because when I started having questions, and I'm a fairly independent person, so I don't ask simple questions. I try to find them. But when I asked a question, it used to be hard, and you, the community, answer it, and you answer it wonderfully. Like with a lot of experience, I can tell that the people here have 30, 20 years of experience in the field, because everything's so well directed and filled with knowledge. You're an amazing community, and I'm very happy to be part of it, mostly. And we just had here Jean-Pierre talking about time, like going from atomic clocks into space, and what else? Now, how many people do you find in other communities like this? And I think one of the most important things we have to do, I think there is a reaction in the chat, maybe.
There are lots of reactions. I think
Oh,
there's a lot being typed here. Afterwards,
Okay.
afterwards we'll have to go over the chat
Okay.
and summarize it in some way.
Okay. So I think the most important thing that
But yes, Olivia has
has raised the hand. No, no.
Who?
There is a
Hi.
raised hand in
Ah,
the chat.
hi.
Hi, I'll be quick because it's on subject on the previous page. You said things are not really happening at university, but at AdaCore, I'm responsible for the GAP program, Gnat Academic Program, and we have a workshop coming next Tuesday, Thursday. Okay, I know I might, well, it's almost a week ahead, but we will present, students will present 6 projects that were made this year, embedded stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. A Flexbox implementation on embedded platforms, Arena Stack. What else? A D-Miner robot, that kind of stuff. So just a quick word to tell you if you're interested. I've posted the link right in the chat here. So yeah, please attend if it interests you to see what's going on with them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I make
Good.
one remark?
Yes.
It might be interesting for Intercon to consider opening up the GAP program also for enthusiastic volunteers who are open source enthusiasts or whatever, not necessarily related to university. Because currently the GAP program is for academics only.
I
Just
will.
a suggestion.
Yeah, I will not go down that path, but from what I know, the GAP programs are generally recorded, and a lot of past programs are available in YouTube, in the AdaCore YouTube. Oh, by the way, YouTube. Do you know the video I told you about Soding and his experience and things like that? This video, this Praise It link. That video gained 60,000 views in 48 hours. Right now, it's like 80,000 views. Okay, there is a reason I focus so much in older languages, which I forgot to write here in the slides, and I'm angry at myself. One of the important values of efficiency is how broad you're targeting. So I'm going to use the typical American example of shotguns. So you can have a bullet and it goes down one line, but you can have a shotgun that has many pellets and goes to a broader audience. If we are, I think Ada is targeting a very small set of people if it's targeting anything at all. This video, Soding is a general programming person, so he has top videos about nearly everything. Really, it's a very cool guy and cool thing. He can reach a much broader, much more diverse community that normally gets targeted. I think that is very, very important, because if you're a 1%, if you have a 1% hit rate in a group of 10 people, you are very likely to miss. If you have a 1% hit rate in 10,000 people, hey, that's already quite a few. So yeah, just pointing the economics of size. These venture capitalists love that, to point that out. No? So I think that one of the most important things I still have not covered is, I think Ada has to help itself first and most importantly. And here are a couple of examples. No? The entire Apple ecosystem basically depends on a single person in the Ada community, and we all know him. No? There's Simon Wright. He is the one maintaining GCC support and Gnat support in Apple systems, basically. There are also, Maxime is also helping him a little bit, but he's basically the only person. And I will refer to my earlier remark about old men. He's getting old, and some of you are getting old. Some of you are retired already. I will not look at anybody. But that's not good. And I'm saying that from experience. I work in the nuclear sector. The nuclear sector of Spain was built, guess what, 40 years ago. Guess how many years do people normally work for? A lot of people are starting to retire, and very young people are starting to take positions that they have a lot of responsibility, and it's fine for that person, but it doesn't indicate a healthy, future-proofed ecosystem. So yes, Sweet Ada is solely developed by Gabriel Galeotti. I invited him especially so that the wider Ada community could discover his work. As I said, he has more than 2,500 commits of Sweet Ada, all alone by himself. There's only one single commit that he didn't do, and it was my commit to the FPA I showed you earlier. So yeah, Ada Core is the driving force of the technological side of tooling. Whether we like it or not, I think it's fine. I know some people have other opinions, and I think we should try to cooperate. And I very much like the comments about GAP, and if we want, we should join. I think we should promote these things better within Ada and outside of Ada. If you see someone is doing something in Ada, like Ada Core, and they're having their academic program, hey, maybe I don't know, I don't have Twitter, but retweet it or tell that to your group of friends that's not interested in Ada. Bring new people into the language. And younger folks could be welcome. I'm very happy to see that I'm not the oldest one, but not by much. The average age here is probably above 40, if not 50. So yeah, that doesn't look great for the future sustainability of Ada. And efficiency is key here. It doesn't matter if one person maintains a very important project as long as it's maintained. But 20 people shouldn't take that same work if it can be done by 1 or 2 people. We have little resources, so we need to be efficient about them. And we need, I don't want to say this, but if there are 10 different Ada alternatives, maybe pick the one that has the highest survival probability or marketability or things like that. I know this is painful for some, but that can be. Show the world, as if there is a point I've been trying to hammer down continuously, is promote Ada outside of Ada. Show the world, show what we've been capable of. That's one of the reasons I'm recording this, is so that I can put the presentations online so that people can see with Sweet Ada you have a framework to target several different architectures. How many other languages have such frameworks? In C you have silos for like the PowerPC people and the RISC-V people and things like that, but there is no single framework that is so broad in scope and high quality also, and easy to use. We have it. Show the world, and be proud about it. Yeah? Are you proud of being Ada programmers? People who work in companies that have projects that shouldn't be publicized with Ada, ask your managers just to allow you just to say, we work with Ada in this project, full stop. Not in what systems, not for what things, not what level of quality, not if it's been successful or very successful, but at least say in a way that they can somewhat formally, that people can formally verify, yes, the OTAN, the NATO uses Ada in missile systems, for example. I'm making this up. Also, help lower the barrier of entry. If the community has to grow, we have to lower the barrier of entry, not only for new people, but also for ourselves. Learn Ada Core and Ada Lang are wonderful resources, but not enough. If you like making videos, maybe try making videos. Libraries and tools, we need lots of them, but the ones we have, document them better. It's one such example that you are all probably very familiar of. GTK. Now, how do I use GTK in Ada? Or is there an example I can take of, or is there some documentation? No, you just have to find your way through. Luckily, Ada is very readable, and reading the source code generally just gets you where you want to be. But docs are very, very important. And praise to Rust. I don't know if how many of you have seen the Rust documentation of their libraries, tools, and everything. 2 people. The Elixir documentation, has anybody taken a look at that? 1 person. They are really good. Really good. You say you like reading books and people should read books. That documentation is really nice and people want to read it. And it's simple, it's straight to the point, it's short, sweet, as we say in Spanish, corto y bueno, 2 veces bueno, short and good, twice as good. it's great. And I know engineers, and you're really good engineers, that generally don't like documentation, but hey, it's something we have to work on. Um, we are very few people, and it happens that a lot of new people or experienced programmers, but new to Ada, come and ask a question, and there is nobody to answer them because maybe there are just two people that know the answer, and maybe they are not in the forums or they are in holidays, and nobody else can help them. It would be nice if we all could help each other in answering questions and getting together. So since we are a small group of people, at least let's become effective at helping others, be efficient. Better tooling and Leaps, Alier and Get Data are wonderful, and improve some OS because, for example, NetBSD, OpenBSD, and all those things. So, of course, marketing, developers and marketing. It's constantly said in the Ada community, oh, this would be better if written in Ada. Oh, they should have done this in Ada. We've heard this in the past, how many hours? 6 hours? Quite a few times. Try not to waste your time on resources. Try to be efficient, use C libraries or whatever, and showcase the value added of Ada. So, and participate in events. We are not using the resources we have. I know some people here are very familiar with this, but there are things that promote, that pay people to work on projects, specifically open source projects like the Google Summer of Code. Even fucking GNU COBOL got accepted. Ada has no excuse not to be there. And we don't even have to be there officially. Since we are part of like GCC, if there is a project that we wanted to improve the compiler with something, we could just launch a project within GCC, as they are also part of the Google Summer of Code. Fortran Lang is also there too, by the way. Language conferences, for example, I see a lot of interest in, especially in academia, about formal verification, and it's always COG, it's now Lean, it's Prolog. I've never seen Spark in any of those presentations, or Haskell people with their liquid types. Why isn't Spark there? We are really good. I would dare to say much better than them, because our proofs are actually working code, unless they are. It's not just academic code. It's not just something that tells you, yes, this would work. No, you can have something that says, yes, this would work, and actually run it. So yeah. So closing remarks. Ada excels at pretty much any technical level. It is impressive. You should be proud of yourselves. But we need to promote it, market it, showcase it to the world. Okay, and use the effective trends. Yes, Jeffrey?
Yeah, well, so I think, that as a software engineer, what's most important to me is correctness. And what I see is, for instance, Rust is popular because even the stupid people who think C is a good language are starting to realize that correctness is important. And so much as I hate to say it, I don't think we should be having Ada conferences or Ada groups. We should be having correct software conferences and correct software groups where we demonstrate that Ada is the best way to achieve that. That's, why I like Ada. It's the best way to be correct, the best way to be clear, the best way to support the way that I think about developing software.
I partially agree. No, maybe not destroy all Ada conferences, but I do fully agree with Ada being present in a lot more non-solely Ada-related topics.
We like the conference on reliable software technologies,
for example. And use the same marketing techniques as are being utilized and effective. If you're a compiled low-level, high-level, non-GC programming language, just say you're blazingly fucking fast. It works for some people, for some languages, for some communities. Okay, welcome new people and encourage collaboration between, especially the Ada community and modern practices. There's still a lot of old Ada like standards and libraries that could be updated, and it would be nice if the documentation, the documentation, the code that people read nowadays would be also updated. And I would dare to say that nowadays there are more people, new people interested in ADA than ever before. People are now willing to discover more things. They are willing to try new things. They are willing to, and ADA changes the way we think. It's a, even if you don't use it, it's a value-added language, and people are starting to realize that. So maintain a healthy relationship between formal and informal communities. I think that's also very important. Even if I just focus on the informal ones, formal ones are also important. And yes, become more efficient with what we do, dynamic, bolder, maybe younger even. So
I would be very
more
interested in a method to become younger.
it's all in your mind. That's the point. In the way we act towards others, no, be more proactive, no, less complacent. When I say is ADA use, all of you said yes. How many of you are using ADA in new projects? Nobody. And that's the complacent part of that I was trying to point out. Obviously, take everything that I say with a grain of salt, as I said. Don't take it personally. So thank you, comments, critics. My email is there. If you want to write me an angry email, feel free to. I know I'm not right in many things I've said. I'm not a professional ADA programmer. I just build nuclear reactors. I know. So feel free. And if you have any closing remarks and questions, and I think we went way overboard with the time, but sorry for that.
No one threw us out.
So. Christian? So I think the audio quality was incredibly low. So no. That's because of the recording equipment here. Sorry. Just to let people online know what Christian said, that he found out that ADA was used in submarines, and that was what piqued his attention. And he was writing some C operating system from following a forum post, and then he moved on into ADA, and it was thanks to the forum post that he learned further. So yes, and actually I know at least one of the guys that wrote submarine ADA code. So yeah, he lives in Australia. And another one there. so yeah. And I think we are young people. We are impressive, very impressionable, and I think that has to be something that has to be exploited. You can use manipulate young people that way. That's what marketing is for. But if we do it in a, let's say, healthy way, in a honest way, like, hey, if you care about important projects, ADA is used for submarines. It's used for healthcare equipment. It's used in the ISS. It's used for comets and satellites and things like that. That's honest. And I hate marketing. As an engineer, I hate marketing. And
if you fly an Airbus, it's likely your engine control is recommended.
So in aerospace, I believe Boeing, the Boeing 777 is like nearly 100% ADA or something like that. Indeed, and yeah, that's an objective point of measure. I hate marketing. I hate trying to convince people with figures that may or may not be fully transparent and honest. Yeah, that's like Sarah is telling us to get the fuck out. But this is true. This is honest information, and it's don't feel. Once again, trying to get this information out if you can legally, and you're not breaking NDAs and things like that. But ask for permissions if you can, and try to be proactive in those things with your managers. Maybe shake them a little bit. So yes. We need, sorry for the online people, but we've been indicated to vacate the room not as soon as possible, but to do so quickly. So hopefully it was very interesting to you, also online. Sorry for the technical issues. The range of the microphone seems to have been not as good as I had hoped or expected. But hopefully, if the connection wasn't good or anything, you will have the recording to watch it later. So yeah, that's everything for today. Thank you very much.